Good morning, my name is Nicolas Picciotto. I've been involved for the past 30 years in the IT, telco and application development industries. And parallelly, whilst I was young and I had the ability to study and work properly in those fields, I started to set up the studio, which is called Swiss Vintage Studio, several years ago. And so the setup of gears and equipment that you've got around me is part of the whole set of the whole studio, which is divided in two parts. And when I had the chance to have my son, I decided to quit the rest of the industries and start from scratch these facilities and studio, and develop these activities together with some friends that you for sure will know very soon. The fact is that I started to buy this equipment 37 years ago, and I was fond and sometimes working with people from this industry decades ago, because I started to, once I met, for instance, Michel Geiss, who was the chief engineer from Jean-Michel Jarre. It was in the mid-80s. I was 15 years old, and I initiated some sounds recorded and some presets recorded from various producers or musicians, such as the one I used to be. And so for the past decades, I've been trying to have the ability to buy this equipment and learn how to use it, and have the ability to produce music for my own and for other artists. As I was 11 years old, I had the choice, which was very, let's say, special from my father, because he used to be a very wealthy person at that time already, and had the ability to choose various subjects to get as a gift. And first I received a Yamaha DX9, sorry, and which I swapped for a Roland Juno 106. Which was one of the key synths used throughout the industries, let's say from the 1982 to 1990. Swiss Vintage Studio has grown from a very simple mindset. Across the industry, there is nowhere the ability to have a living museum with so many gears, because we've got more than 160 gears available, interconnected in a way where you can produce, operate, and make music and record, mix it, and master it all together on the same site. So there's no need to make exchanges or swaps or refer to any third-party provider to get any of those gears. They're on site. I know them all. We've got a small team of people around helping me on a daily basis as well. So when we've got, let's say, the equipment that has to be reshuffled, refurbished, or repaired, we've got direct access to people locally and in the US for most of the maintenance. The first pitfall in our field is to be overwhelmed by gears, meaning that, let's say, you get lost. Just to give you an example, this gear on my right hand side is a Kawai K5000S. This gear has 1000 parameters, and you've got 127 steps per parameter. Taking into account that you've got over 160 gears available, and you have to know them all, And you have to know the computers, and you have to know the recording environment as well, and you have to know the frequencies and how to mix and master properly, and together with the appropriate equipment. That's the main pitfall. It's to get lost, as to say, in translation, because there are so many possibilities that creativity is exactly inverted as a ratio to the amount of technical possibilities. Second pitfall, which is quite important in this environment, is to get either directed correctly by the artist or the label or the studio, which requests either a partial help or a partial production. And the idea is that, let's say, if you don't have a right and appropriate job description, then it's very easy to waste time. And wasting time is wasting money in this environment, which is very competitive. It's not very competitive because the quality of the production is magnificent, because quite frankly, good things and, let's say, less good things are playing all around altogether. But the thing is, there are so many artists, so many labels, so many studios, and so music has been democratized in a way that, let's say, people don't get around for a top quality environment. They are not ready to pay for it, and they want, let's say, an average result with average tools, average skills, for a maximum return on investment the quickest possible. And third pitfall to consider is to be, let's say, well surrounded. If you think that by yourself you're going to develop correctly this environment and this activity, you're dead, especially if you have so many gears. Okay, it doesn't cost, let's say, a full-time budget once you've got the gears, let's say, that you've been getting as assets over the years. But the thing is, just for the maintenance, just imagine that if a gear such as this one on my right-hand side is costing nowadays something which is approximately $6,000 US, repair and maintenance will reach at least a third of that price. And if you've got 160 gears and you are just on your own, either throughout maintenance or repair, or production, or dispatch, or distribution, or interfacing and getting the right relationships across the industry, you can't do that on your own. And so if you want to launch yourself into this activity with that type of setup, better have, let's say, either a lot of money and time or lots of friends, or better mix both. So basically there are three main variations and steps within the process of making, let's say, electronic music or modern non-organic tools type of music. The first one is recording. So either an artist comes with either a guitar or sends me her or his vocals, raw file, without any treatment, any effects, okay? Or the artist wants to play directly one of the virtual plugins or instruments available throughout the platform. We use Ableton, we use Logic Pro 10 as well. We don't use Pro Tools anymore because it was like a factory by itself. But the thing is very important. You've got, let's say, as many virtual possibilities within the computers that you have with the physical gears. So sometimes artists just want strings layers or pads or a type of solo which is being played in a certain way, and I'll come back to it when it's the appropriate time for it. But the thing is, or sometimes they want to record directly fresh onto the gears. So as usual, the job description is key, otherwise you get lost. Second part is mixing. Very well known and famous DJs in France and here in Europe, for instance, on behalf of whom we are producing LPs and EPs, just stepped by 2 weeks ago. And so they send us their tracks and their song. We reshuffle it all, we remix per track, and then we make a type of mix which is suitable to the artist or the label or the recording studio, which could be, let's say, the issuer of that type of file. And there is the third way, the third part, sorry, which is called the mastering. Okay, so mastering, once this is the final product that you're listening to when you're buying a record or a CD, or when you go and make some shopping onto Spotify, iTunes, or Bandcamp, or whatever. So basically, either the artist or the studio or the label wants to focus onto 1/3 of those steps, or wants the whole process to be achieved and completed, and we can do the 3 of them. So, but once again, organization is key. Too many resources, technically wise, with few human resources as well. Now, the second impediment is the size of the studio for now, because we're going to move locations next year. But it doesn't look like, but it's packed with equipment. So if you want to have 2, 3, 4, 5 teams all together working in the same studio, this is quite difficult nowadays. But it's going to be quite different next year, because we've got another location we're going to move to. So the most demanding production on my side regarding what I do for my own is to produce something which is audible. Why do I say this? Because I'm used to experimental environments, okay? For me, you've got frequencies that I can listen up to almost 100,000 hertz, okay? Though the average human limit is 22,000 hertz, okay? And so having the ability to grant those gears, let's say the appropriate environment, frequencies and setup, so there are not too many sounds altogether with very distinct frequencies. So I like crystal clear environments. So that's one impediment for me. It's to have something which is limited for an industry, because I come from unlimited environments in the tech. So this is what is a good teaching on a daily basis. Now, referring to one of the most demanding songs I did, it's Beings from the Origins, because it involves playing the guitar without a guitar. It involves playing a bass without a bass, playing the drums without drums, but everything is being played naturally, between quotes, in a way that every single type of artist or player would play it on stage, naturally. That is very difficult, because you have to know a bit of the tech and the playing technique from each one of them, and you have to think about them being on stage, feeling natural, playing that part of a song. Now, Beings from the Origins as an LP, which is not finished yet, was something which was forecasted to be produced and played around the world in 2019, before the COVID spread out. And so the idea behind this is to get 5 continents, and every single time we reuse artists and famous artists from the industry from every single continent. So being in the infrastructure and technique and all this for the past 30 years, this is something that is natural to me, but which is not natural to people, including banks and the others, because they don't understand how, let's say, we can pinpoint an artist in Australia, making her or him sing or play a bass, sent back to Switzerland, just for the studio, but let's say in a duplex being played with a guitarist in New York. And so this is such a workload that most of people are, let's say, submerged by the amount of work. And third reason why this is so demanding is that, let's say, the treatment of each sound has to be like you would be even mastering within a mix every single instrument. So it means that, let's say, you can't be satisfied with the overall sound from the song if you don't, let's say, make mastered songs within the song itself. Unfortunately, nowadays, for personal reasons, I can't focus 24/7 onto the studio because I've got some issues, personal issues to solve. But let's say, hopefully, during summertime, starting end of July, I'll be able to focus 100%, knowing that I'm not sleeping very much. So it's going to be between, I don't know, 10 to 16 hours a day, just for the studio and everything which is related to this environment, including promoting the Swiss Vintage Studio label, and the marketing, the promotion, and having the ability to get more artists willing to record here. So there is one good example if you're just a keyboardist, which is a song which I'm going to release in a month from now. It's called Human Beings Boundaries, and this song has been, let's say, spontaneously played and recorded. Okay, so it's going to be remixed, reshuffled, reworked, and mastered properly. But the thing is, that's, let's say, having an idea, for instance, of something which is big for many people, with a nice feeling within the bottom of my heart. And so, let's say, the sounds, the ways, the arpeggios, and the way it's being played, and the suite of accords are key. Now, this is something which is being a bit like a fresque. Okay. Now, if you want to record something which is more rhythmic and less synthetic and cerebral, and you want something which is more rhythmic with drums, with congas, with whatever percussions you intend to use, then there is something that you have to forget is the music itself. Just focus onto the rhythm. So once the rhythm is being recorded and you get satisfied with the sounds, then only then you start putting anything else but drums. Okay? Then there's the bass. If you've got something which is drums or percussions oriented or very rhythmic, same for techno. Some artists in the techno environment like to put the kick drum first, then have the snares, then the claps, then the hi-hats, then the rides and the bells and all this. Some others have rather start with the bass drum and then many strange sounds so that they feel exotically involved and transported. But let's say if you go back to rock environments, for instance, first of all you need to start with the drums, and then you put the bass, and then you can think about putting a lead or a pad or strings or things like those. Then the sounds, you can imagine that you've got no limits in this studio. So it's up to the artist to, owing to his or her own taste. So for the techno side, nowadays there are so many tools that are automated that usually, let's say, a good DJ is able to produce a track within one day, maybe even less. not with the mastering and the mixing included, but let's say at least something which is audible and which is structured with almost everything. Very gifted artists such as Animal and Me or DJ Popov, these guys were very fast, very quick, very efficiently, and since this is a repetitive process, then there is much of cut and paste and replicate type of actions. Now, this is for the techno, which is the most simplified process or way of working. If you do something like the music I do for myself or for my own, usually someone not knowing the gears the way I know and not knowing the music the way I know could take between 1 week and 1 month per track. And for me, from the, let's say, the creative process ignition step to throughout the mix and the mastering stuff, if I'm refocused and not disturbed, I can do that in 1 day. Even for a track of 8 minutes. I never use twice the same sounds from one track to the other. Never the same settings, never. That's the way I work, so that I've got a specific color, which is more white and zero space available, though the same kind of dynamic is available throughout the industry. So it's a bit like getting a movie with a very wide screen instead, but let's say being viewed in 4K or 5K or 6K. Whilst usually, sorry, for the most of the artists or labels or recording studio focus onto a video clip. One of the top artists I've been I had the chance and hopefully for the next decades to work is a very close friend whose name is Johanna Fagan, and she's a famous singer and drummer and bassist in northern part of Ireland. She has a unique voice because she can sing whatever she wants. She wants to sing classical, she wants to sing punk, she wants to sing reggae, she wants to anything. This is amazing. And the clarity of her voice is such that it's like a tool itself. It's not like a voice. So, a quick hint which is important. To me, what is more important than, let's say, dynamics only are the harmonics. Her voice is like a miracle because you've got so many harmonics within it that you can provide special effects, let's say dynamically, for every single frequency within her own voice. So what she does usually is the following. Either she's got a track which is ready and she sends me the raw instruments, and I do the same process, that I remix the whole track, and I provide the effects, and then I make a mix, and then I master the track itself, send it back to her so that she provides her approval. If she doesn't, then I rework the thing, of course. And so, so that, let's say, at least there is a final product which is already audible very quickly. Then, depending on what kind of style she's singing, sometimes, let's say, for a track such as when they used to sing freely, we've got 18 vocal tracks. So this is an amazement, because the only artist who used to work that way was Enya in the 1980s. Okay, this is why there is so much width and depth, and Johanna's vocal has the same ability. Okay, so this is one type of a work. Then for something like such as Raga Spaceship, we only use 4 channels, but we use distortion effect as well. And so the way it sounds is raw, brutal, and all her harmonics are being distorted naturally by the distortion effect. So this is why it's so interesting to work with such talented artists, because she's mastering her art 360 degrees. So basically, for now, Swiss Vintage Studio has been a very small structure. Most of it's dedicated to a personal environment. The studio itself is located, studio number 1 is located within my own home basement. So it's been structured, you can imagine that for, let's say, a 30 square meter location facility, you've got more than 1,200 cables. So just for you to bear in mind the density of it. So basically what has been done for the past 5 years is to set up the structure itself, buy the gears, have the ability to produce some music on behalf of other artists, be recognized throughout the industry, have the ability to buy more equipment, to make more demos, to have more artists quite known across the industry. And so this is the step that we reached as of now. What we intend to do now is to look for customers directly, have the ability to receive big studios or labels or contractors, so that, let's say, no matter the size of the studio itself, so once again, we've got 2 locations, but let's say, no matter the size of those locations, if, let's say, a top environment is looking for that type of sound, of color, of flavor, we can provide it for sure. The only thing that we could not do was to work directly onto the material by itself and make the promotion of this ability. So now, as I told you some minutes ago, if you are very well surrounded, you've got this ability. So thanks to a brilliant and dedicated team, which is living and working across Europe, we've got now this ability. So every day, if everything works fine, which is not every day, sometimes you've got breakdowns. For instance, 2 days ago, I had a chat with the team I was just referring to about, let's say, making a short videos and from the studio, just for a quick shot. And I said, okay, I'm going to switch it on and everything's going to be fine. And lights were out. So basically, that's kind of normal day. The lights are not vintage at all. The infrastructure is it's brand new, okay? Everything is fine, state of the art, but it was crappy for 30 minutes. So that's one thing that can happen. Second thing that can happen, if you get away from the studio for 1 or 2 weeks, is that you have to replay each and every single keyboard and buttons. You have to turn them because it gets oxidated, okay? So sometimes the contacts are not manifesting correctly, okay? They're not functioning properly. So there is another thing that you have to take into account. Then you've got something which is important, is the backups, because there are so many files, either from artists or myself. So we've got a very nice equipment and environment, but let's say just the backup stuff is, I think it's reaching a figure which is beyond 50 terabytes of data. So 50 terabytes of data to look through whilst you have to record, mix, master, it's a bit tricky. So that's another part. Then if an artist knows exactly what type of gear to use, that's perfect. But most of the artists are not squared people. So they are lovely, creative, spontaneous, and fun. Most of them are never arrogant, which is key in the industry. This is why it's such a pleasure to work into this industry. But the thing is, they don't have a clue. and not having a clue across 160 gears with up to 1000 parameters per gear is quite a nightmare quickly. So depending on the nightmare origin, it could be infrastructure, it could be resource or location related. It can be because I'm never ill, so that's good news. The studio is always open and runs, whatever happens to me. But the thing is, it has to be very well set and organized first, otherwise you get lost. So basically, now if I make music for myself and my own, I've got a very clear view and opinion of what I'm gonna do. Since I've been learning musical, let's say classical music, sorry, with a counterpoint, harmony, and everything which is related to classical music, I have the whole song in mind before playing it. So what I usually do, let's say there are two ways. Either I have no real clue of what I'm going to create. I just play 1 or 2 gears, like the sound, and generate a track from it. Or I have it all, with all the arrangements in mind, and then I just recopy or duplicate what's in my mind throughout all the gears. So not all the artists are working that way. Some are looking, some are searching, some are limiting themselves to 1 or 2 instruments. I hate to limit myself, which is one drawback, a major drawback I may expose, but I'd say I hate to limit myself. The equipment itself, or the way to work with the equipment, or let's say, or the queries from either the artists or the labels or the studios, or the time available to proceed, are the limits by themselves, which are quite sufficient. So basically, a day might be surprising or very easy to forecast. It depends. Thank you very much once again for everything. Take care. Have a nice day.